Truthout.org calls the roadmap ominous, and Swing State Project calls it, quote, the economic plan which calls for destroying Medicaid and Social Security, end quote. You see, these Washington liberals don't want serious debate about reducing government spending, deficits, or debt. Just this year, they forced through a health care overhaul that goes in the opposite direction, to a realm of increasing medical cost and government subsidy and control of health care. And unlike Paul Ryan's plan, which, despite the scare tactics, won't touch benefits for those over 55, the so-called Obamacare reform guts benefits as soon as next year for the 11.3 million retirees, current retirees, on Medicare Advantage. All in the name of growing government and expanding entitlement programs, creating greater dependencies at a time when we need to foster self-reliance and growth. It was on this date, 45 years ago, July 30th, 1965, that President Lyndon Johnson signed Medicare and Medicaid into law. The Great Society. Where has it gotten us? As Kevin Ferris of the Philadelphia Inquirer wrote last week, quote, if tomorrow liberals in Congress, state legislatures, and town councils all across the nation raise taxes and increase spending in order to fund every single item on every special interest wish list, would social justice nirvana have arrived? No. Within hours, some liberal would find an unmet need that only a new government program could address, end quote. We are at a crossroads in our country, a time of decisions that impact our future and our children's future, decisions about whether we will leave this place better than we found it. To close, I quote from Peter Berkowitz, writing recently in the Wall Street Journal, quote, today's conservative reformers appreciate that within its limited sphere, government should be excellent. Promoting individual responsibility, self-reliance, and opportunity requires targeted action. Conservatives, Republicans, are putting forward ideas, common sense solutions to make our government more responsive, transparent, and accountable, to provide for equality of opportunity, not dictate equal outcomes. Unlike empty platitudes of hope and change, these ideas can inspire ingenuity, progress, personal and societal growth. I thank you for listening, and I welcome your questions.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to Rob Frost, chairman of the Cuyahoga County Republican Party. We will return to our speaker momentarily for our traditional City Club questions. We encourage you to formulate questions for our speaker now and remind you that your questions should be brief and to the point. We should have plenty of time for questions today. We remind you that members and guests alike are welcome to attend City Club forums and hope everyone listening will join the City Club. Please visit our website, www.cityclub.org, to see a full schedule of our upcoming programs. Our greetings go to those present in this room, especially those who are guests. We hope you will join the City Club and become active in our ongoing civic dialogue. We welcome all of you here and those listening to WCPM 90.3 FM, WCLV, WTAM, or one of the many radio stations across the country. Our television broadcast partner is WVIZ PBS IdeaStream. Television broadcasts of the City Club are made possible by Cleveland State University and PNC. Our live broadcast is supported by the University of Akron. Our live webcast is supported by the University of Akron. Today we welcome guests at tables hosted by Baker and Hostetler, KeyBank, and the Republican Party of Cuyahoga County. Now we would like to return to our speaker for our traditional City Club questions and answers. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests, as previously stated. Holding the microphone today is City Club Development Assistant Lucille Barbati. First question, please.
Mr. Frost, during your talk, you referred to Lyndon Johnson signing the Medicare law and asked, where has it gotten us? Would you please answer that question?
What I referred to was the Great Society, yes, and where has it gotten us? Look, we are in a time right now with policies that are being proposed that are entirely unsustainable. So where it has gotten us, is unfortunately into promises that if we continue to make them the way they're rampantly being made, we're not going to be able to keep them. And that's not appropriate. This country has been founded upon generations who work, strive to leave this country better for their children and their grandchildren. And what we're looking at is leaving our children and grandchildren with a mountain of debt. So it's the state of the mentality of increasing entitlements. My reference right after that was actually to what if every program were funded, what if we tried to meet every need with a government program? Look, if President Obama's 2011 budget were put into effect as proposed, the U.S. federal government would add an estimated $9.8 trillion to the country's accrued debt over the next decade. Of that, over $5.5 trillion would be interest alone. And by 2020, the agency estimates that the public would reach $20.3 trillion, or 90% of GDP in our debt. That's where the Great Society mentality continuing is going to get us. That's up from 53% in 2009. Look, let's put the deficits in historical perspective. The federal deficit as a percent of GDP had rarely since World War II exceeded 5%. They were typically in a range of 2 to 4%. The Bush-era deficits, they hovered in the range of the historical norms, and in fact were at the lower end of the range, under 2% of GDP in 2006 and 7, rising in 2008 to just over 3% of GDP. The 2009 federal deficit, Barack Obama's first year of his presidency, the federal deficit was more than triple at 9.9%. Oh, I know, Bush's fault, right? Well, the 2010 federal deficit is over 10.5%. The forecast for 2011 is 9.2%. Not the start of a downward trend, because the full effects of Obamacare won't have kicked in yet. By 2050, 40 years from now, deficits would reach 22% of GDP, according to the CBO. That's more than the entire federal budget in 2008. So that, I hope, answers your question.
My concern is, how can we elect the proper leaders for our reforms that we're envisioning? A few years ago, there was a website comparing the history of all the judicial candidates. How can we continue this website and expand it to give the history or the iconology of all the candidates for the new Cuyahoga County reform?
It's a very good point. A great program, supported and involved many of our leading attorneys in the county involved in this. The Judge for Yourself website. Their most recent rankings have just come out. I'm very pleased that Republican judge, I think I'm allowed to say that, right? Republican judge, Dick Ambrose, received all excellent rankings. I'm also pleased that our candidates received good rankings. Particularly, I want to note candidate Rob McClellan, who also received all excellent rankings across the board. I really applaud the JCRC for their work on this. It's the type of work that I want to see expanded with Michael Unger's Blue Ribbon Commission. What are the things that we can do to help evaluate the quality of... It wasn't that funny. The quality of... I mean, it's Medical Mutual over there. I'm over here talking about regulatory reform. You'd think they'd want to be here. The types of things that we can do to really look at who our judges are, and also what I hope President Unger's commission will look at, under some fine leadership too by James Robanal and Judge Timothy McMonigal. What I really hope they'll look at is what we can do as a community to encourage. I don't want to insult our judges. We have some very good judges in this county, but to continue to encourage a high quality of judicial candidates so that we don't have uncompetitive races, so that we don't have uncontested races. We can see more contested primaries. We can see more contested general elections. Those are all good things. Our democracy works. Let's use it.